Hello and welcome. This is a new video. This is in my project series. And as many people know, I've been working on my roof for the past, it was the end of the summer type job. And this is all the pictures and how the job went. So this is the 2025 roofing project. So here are some of the before pictures. Before starting this roof, it was 32 years old. So it was due to be switched out. Now I was planning to re-roof this for several years, and then last year during the winter I started getting some leaks. So it had to be done this year before the rainy winter season started. So here you can see the yellow squares are 10 by 10 sections. Each yellow square is a 10-foot by 10-foot section. And the red sections at the top, I believe that was 8 or 9 foot. I think it was like 8 foot. So each bundle of shingles that you get, three bundles of shingles, three packages is one 10 by 10 square. So by kind of measuring this and adding this up, you kind of get a feel for how many bundles you're going to need, how many rolls of the tar paper, how many nails, how many all that stuff by just doing like a quick measure. And I just kind of marked it out with spray paint to kind of get an idea of how much supplies I would need to get started. So I started this project on September 13th, 2025, and this is a re-roof. That means you just shingle right over the previous roof. It saves time and money because you don't have to remove the old shingles, which costs a lot now to dump. They would do it by weight, and it would be, a lot of shingles, a lot of removal, and a big mess to remove the original layer of shingles. So shingling right over the previous roof saves time and money. Saving the money or keeping the cost to a minimum. Not removing the old shingles also provides extra protection and insulation on your roof. So in the past, like in the 90s, I think you could put three total roofs on a residence or a structure. Now, the current building code allows two roofs, the weight being a major factor, and the shingles add a lot of weight to your structure or house. So, everything on this re roof follows the current building code for a re roof. Now, the total cost with everything said and done was $3,011.70. Now that doesn't include extra stuff like beer and alcohol and food, which is also a necessity when doing a job like this, if you're doing it solo. So there were 61 bundles of shingles total, each weighing about 65 pounds. So that was about 4,000 pounds of shingles up there. I used 5 rolls of roofing tar paper. There were 10-inch-and-a-half strips of galvanized drip edge, and they are, I believe, 10 foot long. I used 30 tubes of roofing tar and caulking tubes, 4 boxes of staples with 1,250 in a box, plus I had some left over, 2 pairs of gloves, 1 box of razor blades, 100 count, and two 7,200 count boxes of galvanized coil nails. Now, originally I just bought 1 box of 72 nails, and then I went back to the store and they had like 600 count boxes, and the 600 count boxes were 19.99 a piece. So eventually I ended up with three 19.99 boxes of roofing nails, and I was going to need more. So I ended up buying another giant 7,200 count box, and then I refilled the individual containers of nails and took those back, and I got 60 bucks back, and the 7,200 count box was only 50. So that actually saved a lot of money buying the extra giant box of nails. So, moving on, the most important thing of the job is your coil nailer. Now, you could nail all these off by hand, but that is like an insane thing to do. The coil nailer makes it so much easier. Now, I bought this coil nailer used on eBay like 10 years ago, and it has paid itself off several times over. You want to make sure to oil it every day when you're using it because when you're shooting on, 9,000 nails, you really got to make sure it's lubed and it is maintained while you're doing the roofing job. And then you can see a roll of the coil nails. That's kind of what the nails look like in the box. They go into that round section of the coil nailer. You thread it up, and that's how you load your coil nailer. The other important thing is the hammer tacker stapler using the T50 half-inch staples. It's like two rows of staples per thing, and that really makes it easy when you're stapling on the tar paper. And if you're gonna use a staple gun with your squeezing that your hand's gonna run out before the job does. So the hammer tacker makes it 10 times easier to fasten the tar paper. You're also going to need these wet patch tubes, the Henry's roofing caulk. They have it in different kinds. I think there's like a 6 year, a 10 year, a 15 year, and so and so and so and forth. But if you're going to use the tubes of the roofing tar, you don't really need to add that. That's kind of like an extra precaution you could take, and that's what I did, watching a lot of videos on YouTube of how to do these roofing jobs. And whenever you are in doubt or question, use the roofing tar because after it sits up there for a summer and then the winter comes, it will harden really good and make sure that you're going to seal everything you need to seal. Now, if you are using the roofing tar, whether it's in the tubes, they do sell it in a gallon can. You will also need this container of this mineral spirits. Now, if you get this black shit anywhere, it is like insane to get it off. You cannot wash it off with soap and water. But a little bit of the odorless mineral spirits, it comes right off. So that is a lifesaver. If you are gluing and you get some of this on your shoe and you track it in your house, the mineral spirits will take it right off. It will take it right off of your hands. And by the end of the day, I got this shit all over. It's on your elbow, it's on your arm, it's everywhere, and the mineral spirits wipes it right off. So that is an important thing that you need. And you could buy it in, like a pint can. Uh, and it's not that much. I think it was like 12 or 14 bucks for a little pint can. And a little on a rag goes a long way. So it really is a lifesaver. If you're doing this and you're going to be buying 20 or 30 tubes of this roofing tar, you definitely want to get the mineral spirits also for cleanup. And it will also clean off your putty knives and anything that gets that black stuff on there, it'll get it right off. So it's very important to use that also. Another thing is you want to constantly make sure you've got tons of razor blades, lots of fresh razor blades. I have like 10 of these knives because that cutting those roofing shingles, uh the blades run out very quickly. And if all you got are these shitty razor knives, the best ones I have found are the ones that are like the pocket size, the foldable ones where you can flip the little tab up and the razors are a lot easier to change out. Now if they do get gummed up, the mineral spirits also will work to clean uh, the asphalt off from cutting the shingles and stuff like that. So make sure you got lots of knives. I always like to have like one in each pocket because when you start going, they gum up very quickly. Now here are the nails I use. These are the 15-degree wire weld coil. They're galvanized nails, inch and a quarter, and this is a 7200 count package, and I used one full one. I had some nails left over, but I ended up using part of these. Now, if you do have a large number of these, you could sell them on eBay because the price was like, I think back it was six coils for 20 bucks. So you could easily sell packs of 10 for 30 bucks easy on eBay, which maybe down the road I'll end up just selling these off because I got a whole bunch of these left. Or you could maybe just try to sell the open box and make your money back on the nails if you have lots of extra. So I started off with 34 packs of shingles. Now, I waited till the end of the year to start this project because they always have a like a Memorial Day or a Labor Day end of the year sale where everything in the yard and store is like 20% off. So that saved like 300 bucks, I think, something, because I ended up getting a lot of these. And the price, I believe it were, I want to say 47 dollars a bushel, possibly. Maybe it was 42, but 20% off each bundle, it does add up. So, plan ahead. And if you can, save any bit of money you can, you really got to pull the trigger and get that done. So, also another thing to think of, it depends on how you're hauling these. I have a 97 Ford Ranger, and it was like bottomed out. I think I bought 24 or something the first trip, brought them home, and the the springs on my truck were like maxed out. So then I went back and got another one, but they're a lot heavier than they look. Each bundle, I believe, weighs about 65 pounds. So it is a job loading and unloading these things. So day one, I bought the supplies. I loaded and unloaded the shingles, starting with the 34 bundles. I think I paid for 33 bundles. And when I got home, I had an extra bundle, which, that saved me 50 bucks. But try to get as many as you can. If you can sneak some into the back of your truck or something, every little bit helps. So the first unit I got on sale for 20% off. That was helpful. Each pack of shingles weighs 65 pounds. So it's a major job loading and unloading them. And then each pack has to be carried up the ladder. And it was it's a big, big job. And it is very physical to do this. So don't let anybody tell you that it's super easy to do this because it is not. If you're not ready for it, if you don't do it all the time, it will wear you out very quickly. Now I completed this whole job solo, and that's usually how I do it. Hashtag lone wolf. And it's just it's take your time. Don't get in a rush if you're tired and you feel yourself wearing out because it is hot, hot, hot as fuck up on a roof. Especially when you have that black paper rolled out. It's just the heat radiates off that roof. So don't push it, don't overdo it, don't overexert yourself if you're doing this solo or if you're doing this, with your wife or your kids or something. Take your time and don't rush it because you get tired, you get worn down, you get exhausted, and that's how you start getting accidents. You don't want to slip, especially if you're up high on a roof. And you got to really take every precaution to have a safe area when you're working and to make sure that there's no accidents. And you get tired, you get worn down, you start cutting the shingles, and that's when you cut the tip of your finger off or something. I didn't have any problems or anything like that. I took it nice and slow, and knock on wood, I did not cut myself, hurt myself, anything like that. And it went pretty smooth. The hardest part is really just getting started. So, finished up. It turned out really good. I'm super proud of myself and the job. Well done. It was a massive, massive undertaking, but you just got to pace yourself and always, set smaller goals for yourself in order to get a project of this magnitude going. So when you're getting started, the first thing to do is carry up a roll of the tar paper. Now, roofing tar paper, also called asphalt felt or underlayment, is a heavy-duty asphalt impregnated felt paper used to as a moisture barrier beneath the roofing shields, tiles, or metal roofing. So it's very important to have the extra moisture barrier. It keeps everything locked down and keeps things from sliding and things like that. And it is a moisture protector. Now, also before getting started, if you are doing a re-roof, there is a lot of preparation work to be done. One of the main things that I was having trouble with is the trimming of the overhang or the hangover edge from the previous shingles. Now, this is a dirty shit job, but it has to be done for the flashing to sit flush against the previous roof edge. Now, these old shingles from the early 90s are just like fiberglass and plastic and asphalt dust. Really a dirty, dirty, messy job. If you can, you might be able to lay on the edge of the roof at the top and cut from the underside. But in some areas, you have to put a ladder up and get up there and cut it from the underside. And you're if it's super hot, all those fiberglass slivers and stuff stick to your neck and make you itchy, and all the black asphalt dust and all that stuff. It was a really that this was like the worst part of the job, looking back at how shitty this was to cut that edge hanging over. So after you get that cut and you trim it all down, now you could do the entire job if you're prepping to do this. You could do all this a week or two in advance and have all this prepped up. Um, it was like I was dreading it, so I waited till the last minute to do it, but I got it all trimmed up. And then after you've trimmed that edge, you're ready to put your paper on the roof. So, rolling out your paper, you want to just make sure that the paper is nice and straight. That'll help you keep your lines straight, and um, it just you got to make sure to really keep it nice and tight and flat where there's not a lot of wrinkles and things like that. So when nailing it, I would you could pre-cut these on the ground if you could if you know it's going to be a 20 something foot rip, you could re-roll it onto the ground if you have a nice flat area, pre-cut them, then re-roll it back up, get it onto the roof and unroll it. Also, it's best to, if you can get it kind of positioned where you want the tar paper, start in the center and work your way out to keep it nice and flat. And if it does get some kinks in it or ripples or anything like that, you could cut it. But if you do cut it, make sure the next piece goes over the top of the previous piece, or don't just butt it up. You want to overhang it a good 6 inches if you have to. So you roll out your tar paper, try to keep it straight as you can. The lines of the paper are all printed on there to help keep the shingles straight. Line it up, try to start in the center and work your way out. This will prevent creasing. I nailed off the paper once again with the 1/2 inch T90 staples with my hammer tacker. If you had to click those, your hand would be, you wouldn't be able to close your hand at the end of the day. So a hammer tacker, I think you can find one on Amazon for like $30. It will, it's worth it. It's well worth it to keep your hand from having to click those staples off, because you end up you're going to be doing 4,000 staples by the end of the job, and it takes a long time. Where if you're just hammering them on, it's a lot simpler. So I got all the paper on. You can see here, this was about, I think this was one roll of paper. And that's how far I got. I believe it's one, two, three, four ripped, and then there was a little piece left over. So you put the paper on there, and the next thing that you want to do is get your flashing on. So after the paper's rolled on, you fasten it to the roof, and then you add your flashing to secure the ends of the tar paper. Now, the flashing edge will become the starting edge for your shingles. Now, when you put the flashing on, if you're doing this by yourself, you really got to think ahead at every step. And if you had another helper, you could have somebody on the roof hold it on. One person could hold it, one person could nail it, but I had just me up there. So what I did was I applied a nice thick bead of the roofing tar on the backside of the flashing. And when you kind of get it to the edge, you put them on. I use these squeeze clamps to clamp it on and really tighten it up as tight as I could get it to the house. Okay, then once that's nice and secure, you get up and you shoot the coil nails right through the flashing and nail it off every 10 inches or so. You don't really need to go every 6 inches. It's about 10 inches to a foot is the nailing the nailing plan for nailing off the flashing. Okay, so here you can see the edge is on. It's been glued. The paper is nice and cut. You want to, if the paper's hanging over, you want to make sure to clean it, make it nice and flush. Add your roofing tar, shoot your nails on, and now you are ready to start putting on your shingles. Now, here's a pro tip. Make sure you secure your air hose. And this was a good way I did it to make sure that when you're getting on and off the roof all day, you're not going to be stepping on that hose. So you can wedge it into the top of the ladder if you're using an extension ladder, and it will hold it just like that. Really a perfect way of doing it where you can walk around the hose. You're not stepping on the hose. And you want to secure that from falling off. Stepping on the hose may lead you to fall. So be very careful. And it's just a rule of the job. You do not step on the hose because you'll get overconfident walking around, especially when it gets to the end of the day and it's hot. And one wrong twist of that hose, stepping on it, and you could fall off the house. And I've heard and seen people who fall off the house. Falling off houses is not fun. And I mean, you could die if you fall off the house wrong. So be very, very safe and secure. If you have a fear of heights, you got to really kind of get up there. And at the first time, it is high up at the peak of the roof, but towards the end of the job, you're a lot more aware and you're not really worried about the heights anymore. So really, it's like if you are feeling like you have a fear of heights or something, just try to be very careful around the edges of the roof and make sure that you are safety first every time. Make sure your shoes are always tied, you're wearing boots, tie them off really good. And especially also when it's super hot, you're going to be sweating a lot, a lot, a lot. And make sure to stay lots of hydrated. I think I went through easily 36 bottles of water up here in just a few days. I mean, I was just pounding the water. I was sweating so much up there. That black paper is so hot. Especially, I did this towards the end of September, and it was like 98, 95. It was in the 90s for like a week up there. So it's, work for a couple hours, get down, drink water, hydrate up, cool off, and then you can hit it again. But usually I would start very early in the morning at like about 8, 7:38. I'd get my tools out and I would get prepared to get the job done. And then I would usually quit about 2:30. And then when the sun would kind of go over go over the edge of the horizon, I'd get back up at about 5:30 and work until like 8, until the end of the year when the it gets dark earlier. But it should be no problem. Don't rush and take your time. So I'm missing some pictures, but here you can see this is the first 4 rows of shingles done. Now, when you're doing these, the first piece you put on is a standard 3-tab piece on the edge. And you put those on, you can go all the way to the edge. The second piece you put on, you have to stagger each piece. So you're going to want to cut like 2 inches off of the end. Then you want to cut 6 inches off the end, and then you want to cut like 10 inches off the end. And that way, when you start each piece, they are staggered the entire way. Now, when you're doing, 2 inches, 6 inches, 10 inches, and then the fourth piece is another full length piece that doesn't have to be cut. So just remember that you have to stagger every single seam. And also make sure you don't want your nail holes to show. Sometimes that does happen because not every roof is perfect, and it is straight as you get it. It's always going to be a little off, and that's if you can look at the before and after pictures, the top needs an extra little piece at the top to make sure that halfway glue line on the shingle is covered. And there's lots of little things to do, but just try to take your time. I know it's hard to really take your time unless it's like overcast weather and it's not too hot. But once it's 95 up there, it's just you start getting into a hurry up and get done kind of mindset. And you got to really try to take your time when doing this. So here you can see the first four rows on. You could see how each little seam is staggered, and that's the correct way to do it is to stagger it the entire way. Every seam or butting joint should be covered by the next piece so that there is no way for water or moisture to sneak in. Now here you can see this was, now I think the first four pieces was like day one. That's kind of where I got. Then day two starts. I get up really early at like 7:30, and start carrying up the bundles of shingles. Now each bundle weighs 65 pounds, and it's like dead weight. So you really have to be careful carrying those up there because it's like carrying another small person up this ladder, having to step around the ladder, trying to not tear the paper when you're walking on it. And, you carry them up, you stack it. You carry them up, you stack it. And it is a big job for just one person to do. But I'm kind of used to doing these massive projects by myself. And you can do it. It's not too big of a job if you break it down into just this one side, get the first side done, then you move on to the second side, take your time doing that, and then, it'll all kind of come together before you know it. So, I really was getting a good workout in carrying up these bundles, and they're heavy. It's a heavy job, and it's a dirty, messy job to do. So this was finishing up day two. The day one was getting the supplies. Day two was getting the paper on, getting the flashing on, getting the first row of shingles laid out, carrying up the other bundles, and prepping for day three, which I was going to fully try to get, up to where the roof bends and goes up to the top of the peak of the roof. So here you can see this is like day three or 3 or 4. It depends. I'm doing this by myself, but if you had more guys, you could have one guy carrying up, one guy nailing, a third guy could be cutting. I'll go over that kind of at the end, where if you're going to pay people to do it, you can kind of understand how long it should take so that you don't get ripped off of, four guys charging you a week to do a small roof because you could slack it if you were, getting paid a lot of money by the hour. So here you could see I'm almost up to where the roof bends and goes up. You have to get all the paper on to get all the flashing on. And I think I ran out of paper or something. It's like you have to keep going back because, also when doing this, space it out because I didn't have $3,000 all at once. So it was like I had 1,500 to start, and then September it was like another 700, and then October another 700, but we got it done and it turned out good. Here you can see when you start shooting the shingles down, you have to stagger them to ensure that the edges are offset, preventing leaking and water absorption. So you can just see how when you butt the next piece up, it should be covered and not where you're just running them up with a giant seam right down the middle that water can get into. So make sure you're staggering your seams. Sometimes you might have to fudge it a little bit, but that's kind of how you want to work. Is usually I would put on 3 or 4 pieces, and I would try to get as many started as I can to move to the center of the roof. Now, at the end of day 3, this is the end of day 3 where you see the staggering. Day 4, I finished tar papering the entire half of this side. I finished gluing and installing the flashing. The heat on this was insane. The heat of that black paper just blasts you. And it was 95, and then it got up to 98 for a few days. And it's like, I didn't push it. I wasn't in a hurry. It's my house, so I'm not getting paid. If you were getting paid, you could push it if it was worth it, but take your time. You don't want to overexhaust yourself and make yourself sick from the heat, because it will happen if you aren't drinking and you aren't taking care of yourself while you're up there. So, moving on, we got the paper all secured. I got the flashing all on, and right when you think you're done, you got to carry up more and more shingles, which are heavy and will wear you out. The other thing to worry about are all of these vents. You've got to go around these vents. Now, because it's a re-roof, the flashing is already on the underside, and I just made sure that if there is a leak from the flashing, it will run under the shingles and then on top of the next shingle. And just making sure to seal really good around all of these little vents and things like that. So really use your tar and your glue. And I glue the underside. I put the string. I really made sure to glue it really good so that there is no problems. So when you install the shingles, you run the passes the way from one end completely all the way down, following those arrows until you hit where the other roof meets. And that's the first way is you run all the way straight rips until you move up to the valley and where the two edges of the roof meet. Okay, so you have to overlap the next section on top of this to secure for water runoff and things like that. So you move all the way up the roof and to the top, and then we move to the budding section of shingles on the other end. So here you can see it's just, once you get up to the top, it's like you're 20, 25 feet up in the air. And it's a lot higher than it seems from the ground. But just take your time. Don't get too close to the edge if you're not comfortable. And also remember that laying down on that black paper is super hot and it will like start burning your skin. So you do need gloves. And the kind of gloves that I prefer doing this, I had leather gloves. I had that, but they're like fabric gloves dipped in like a rubbery stuff. They're like blue, and they're really good for gripping the shingles and moving them around and keeping you from getting burnt because it's super hot. Putting your hands down, securing them, and make sure you wear your gloves because otherwise it will take a toll on your hands. So, the red arrow is the first pass from one end of the shingles to the valley, and then the next pass is you want to overlap from the yellow arrow going over until the next group meets the first group. Pass the budding into the first pass overlapping, if that kind of makes sense. So you do the red arrows going one direction until the shingles bend to go up the side of the roof, where at that point you move over with the next piece that overlaps, and then then when you're all done and it's all finished, you can cut that nice and straight and glue the underside if you wanted to. So when it's all done, this is the finished edge, and I glued the underside with roof tar, and I glued the shit out of this just to give it the extra kind of moisture protection. Now, this is what it looks like when they all butted up. Now you can see it does look kind of messy with that black tar, but when you are looking at it from the ground, you can't see any of these little smudges and stuff like that. They also look like wrinkledy from being bent and stuff like that, but a couple days in the sun and they lay out nice and flat and are secured. And once again, you want to offset each of the pieces that you can. So That's the first backside completely done. And it turned out really good. It gets a little wonky in the middle because it's just there's nothing you could do to get it perfectly straight. It is straight enough is straight enough. But it turned out great. You can't really notice the little wave in the middle, but it turned out really great. And once again, really gluing around those vents. I've been done for a while. I got a few more little touch ups to do, like any nail head showing. I like to put a dab of that black tar on and flatten it with the stuff and just peel it off. I'm kind of letting it sit, and but I got to get up one more time and do just a couple last minute things. The leaves are falling off my trees. I got to get up there and blow the leaves off and clean the gutters again. But I got one more small afternoon of some touch up stuff, but the majority of the project is done. It turned out really good. Now, this is like cutting around these vents can be tricky. Make sure you use a lot of glue to ensure no leaks. And you may need to re-flash around these vents if you want to. Each one of these flashing things was like $10, and I didn't want to spend the money on it. It can be done after the fact if you're careful. But as you can see, when you're cutting these out, it's good to make little line cuts around it. And then it'll help to make the round edge because these shingles are really hard. You set them out in the sun for a little bit, they do relax and they're easier to cut, but doing it up there when it's super hot is difficult. So make sure you use a lot of glue and really glue under that edge and glue it really, really lots of glue, lots of tubes of glue if you can. It is an extra expense, but I think it will pay off in the long run. So you could flash around these, you could change out these vents. It's harder to change the vents. If I was pulling off the previous roof, I would have put all new flashing on, but that's a whole other thing. And money is tight going into the winter months with all the inflation and all this shit that's going on. So the next is moving to the front side of the house. This is week 2. This side was more into the shade, and I have the top of the roof, which blocks the sun after the afternoon. So this is the side that faces the street. It was a lot easier to do this front side. And then um, so moving forward to the next side. So as I was starting this front and I was getting ready to put the tar paper on, there is a giant rotten piece down here at the base, and that had to be fixed. So this was like a side job that took me a morning and an afternoon to do. But if you see something that is uh, has to be fixed, don't scamp out on it. Replace that piece of wood because you do not want further leaks on your brand new roof that you have to then tear off down the road because your house is leaking. So I had this rotten plywood and roofing structure had to be fixed. So in order to do that, I pulled off all of the old previous shingles that were up there, the 30-year-old shingles. I found the edges of this board. It was all rotten. It mainly just on the end here uh towards the end. That's where like the gutters would fill up, and there was a tree over there. I cut all that back, but pull that piece of plywood off and replace it. Now some of the wood underneath the plywood was rotten and didn't look good. It would have probably been okay, but I had the lumber to replace a few boards at the end in my shop, so I just figured you might as well just fix it all. And I had my framing nailer. I already had the air hose out, so it was easier just to shoot it off with nails and fix that little bit. So I repaired that, got that all fixed. I got a new piece of 1/2 inch plywood, put it on there, nailed it all off, and then um, I didn't want to just put the new roof on there and have like a lip from the other shingles. So I had um, in my attic, I had a stack of the old original roofing 3-tab shingles from the 90s, which, they were really hard, but still good. Throw them up in the sun for 30 minutes. They got a little bit more flexible. I added a new piece of tar paper and then re-roofed this repaired section with the old original shingles that were in my attic from the past 30 plus years. Still worked, still good, perfect for just this little repair section I needed to do. So I got the new plywood on, I put a new piece of the tar paper on, and I re-haired that section with the original shingles so it would all kind of match. Now, after that's done, I could then tar paper this whole side, start the flashing, and get this side going. So here you can see this is that step was the re-tar papering the roof, adding the new piece of flashing. There's a little bit of paint repair to do. That's not a big problem at all. I'll get that done. I already painted the underside, but I still have some small little repairs to do. I got to get that done still, but paper rolled out, the flashing is installed, and we're ready to start with the new roof. Now, same as the backside, starting with the bottom corner of the roof, working to the valley, and doing this second side goes a lot faster because you kind of know what to expect. And I got a break in the weather, and it was nice and overcast for a couple days. Now, I did have a few rainy days that postponed my work for a few days, and I had to go get some plastic and put plastic up, and then the plastic blew off, and I just said fuck it. So it rained for a couple days, that held me off, and then after the rain, I let it dry out really good before I started putting on the other layers of roof. But here you can see the new roof done. Getting started is usually the hardest part of one of these jobs. Once you get going, it goes faster and faster. The weather was starting to cool down, and the next hurdle was after the 34 initial bush bundles of shingles that I got, they were back ordered and they didn't have any more. So it was like towards kind of the end of September, and I was like completely delayed for like 3 weeks trying to get these other shingles. So like half the roof is done, half of it was not done, which really sucks because I like to just get it done and be done with it. But this was like, take a few weeks off and then get it done, which also helped because it is fatiguing carrying up these bundles and getting all this done. So here's this side completely done up to the top where the caps will end up going at the top of the roof. Now, when I when I'm doing this, you see you go the back edge all the way to where the roof bends, and then you overlap with the next section going off, and then you want to cut that down and glue it if it's got any mistakes or anything like that. So once you get to the top on both the front and back side, once the front's done and the back's done, this is when you can start cutting your caps and getting that installed. Now, this is capping the top edge where the two seams meet on both sides. So one of the things was I ran out of these shingles. And when I ran out of the shingles, I needed to finish up the front and back side. And I didn't want the colors to be off when you're viewing from the road or in the backyard. The side of the house faces a neighbor's yard and you can't see anything. So it doesn't matter if the colors are a little off, which they were very similar in colors. But the first color was called Estate Gray, and they ran out of those, and I had to switch to this other color, Driftwood. Now, at the store where I buy these, I went around the yard because they kept telling me that the shingles were going to be in Monday. And that's like the fucking never ending Monday that they always claim. So, I went down to get more. I go, Are you getting more of these estate gray colors in? I need, I'm going to need another 30 bundles of the estate gray. Oh, they're coming. They'll be here Monday. So, waiting around till Monday, I went back on Monday. They said, no, they're still not in. It's going to be next Monday. The next Monday came. They still didn't come in. I ended up driving around the contractor yard and I found five like opened bundles. and I got these at 20% off discount, just like the first batch. So that helped a lot too. Now, they kept telling me, okay, I'm going to get these five, and these are the five I needed to finish the caps on the top, and I still would need another 20 or something. So they kept telling me they're going to come, they're going to come, which eventually I had to put a special order store transfer in to get the another 10 bundles of this estate gray, where they've discontinued them and they don't have them anymore. So I had to uh I had to make do on the back side of the roof, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I got these five opened bundles at a discount. Now, this is the standard shingle. This is a 3-tab shingle. These are the standard shingles that you would get. Now, you could get, they have these like 4-tab that are a lot fancier. They're like a more premium one, but they're like 51 bucks a bundle. And that would have been an extra, 6 or 700 bucks. So these just work fine. These are the standard shingles that, most people go with. Now, you can see that where the two lines are that separate the tabs, then you see the black line at the top. Now that is a glue edge line. So when you're nailing off the base of the shingle, the next piece that you put on top of it will heat up, and that glue activates and holds it down and glues the edges down. So when the wind's blowing, you're not blowing up, the shingles aren't moving. You don't want them to move at all if you can help it. And that keeps them from wearing out. And this is why the extra step of the black car tubes really help when you're trying to lock everything down. Anything that's moving, or you want to, try to squeeze glue in and secure it so it does not move at all when the wind is blowing and blowing water up and stuff like that. So you take these 3-tab shingles and you want to cut them into individual sections. Okay, if you're with me here. So you take the 3-tab shingle, you take a square and you cut the where the tab is, and you make individual pieces. Okay, now that's how the top caps are created, by cutting the 3 tabs into single pieces. Now, this is another pro tip that I saw watching a bunch of YouTube videos, and a couple people were saying it makes a big difference to trim back edge of the shingle so that it's like a tapered edge. And you want to, when you're cutting the top pieces, make sure you cut past the black edge, because you don't want little bits of the black glue edge sticking out. And this also, by trimming this back edge, keeps it from the edges of the back overhanging, and it just gives it a nice kind of a cleaner look. It is a lot of extra work, but it's one of those things that in the long run you'll be glad that you did it. So this is what you'll take the 3 tabs, you cut them into individual pieces and trim the back edge. And I did that on every one of them, and I do think it makes a little bit nicer, cleaner look, because you don't have the square edges from the back sticking out in some cases. So you start on the end and work inward toward the you want to start on the very outer edge and work towards the center of the roof, or where the two peaks meet. Okay. Now, here you can see I'm putting on these caps where the tapered end goes in, and you want to, what I would do is, you want to hide that black little edge that sticks out. That's why I cut that taper right on the edge there, so you don't have any little bits sticking out. Okay. Now I put on the each one of these, I glue on with lots of the asphalt glue. And that's for when you're having a big storm and the wind is coming up. Because I live, there's like a valley and the wind really gets ripping. I want to make sure that outer edge of that glue, that is like the first and last line of defense against water leakage and stuff like that. So I really made sure to glue it really good. So each underpiece is glued just like you see here in this picture. Now you shoot off. Each top cap piece I use 4 nails on, two on one side, two on the other side. Now, when you see that, that's where the nail holes are, right on the edge of that glue line, because that glue edge is also going to help hold it down. But I always make sure to put a little dab on each of the nail heads, and I put some on the back of the cap. Okay, just like this. Now, eventually when that heats up, and that's going to really help to hold it down when the wind is rocking and rolling, as they say. You repeat this capping process until you're finished, cutting the back edge from sticking out, a lot cleaner look. And here you can see once it's all kind of done, it all goes together. Now the difference is the the front and back of the roof were the estate gray original color, and the top caps I used are this other color, this driftwood. So doing it just on the cap, you really can't notice it unless you're really looking, because it just looks like a shadow on how the sun hits it. But here you could see where on the front edge it's all one color. On the back edge, I ran out and they were back ordered, and I had to get the caps on. So right where you see that color difference is the difference in the color of the shingles, which it's not really noticeable on the back of the house. You can't really see it, but that was something I had to deal with. So the front side of the house and the back mostly are the estate gray. The caps are the driftwood color. And it would have been nice if everything matched, but they were discontinued. And, sometimes there's nothing you could do. As long as it is very similar, you're not going to notice it. So I had a great view up here, you know, up on the top of the peak of the house. I can see all throughout the valley I live in. I mean, you can see for miles. I had a great view. I had some nice sunsets. I did run out of shingles, which delayed my process and held me up for a few weeks, but I ended up getting the front and the back side done. And it was at this point that I had to buy more shingles, and they kept telling me they were back ordered. They would be in Monday. I already kind of went over that, but then I special ordered another 10 to finish up front and back sides. And after that, I could move on, leaving the one final side on. There's the front side, the back side, and then the side, if that makes sense. So the side was going to be mainly the driftwood color, because they had 2 pallets of this driftwood and all the other colors were gone. Um, but you can't really notice it at all. So really tried to keep the front and back one color. So from the street, it looks great. Only a small section on the back near the top, which I already showed with the arrows, is barely noticeable when you look. But this is kind of how um how these jobs go sometimes. So from 5 rolls of tar paper, I had 5 rolls of tar paper I bought. And I was like completely out. I also had some left over from another job, but I had to get here you could see where these arrows are. I had just one little section left and I was completely out of tar paper. So I had to go through all the little scraps and ends and try to cover these little last areas. Now, out of 5 rolls of tar paper, this was the only piece that I had left. And this is a 12-inch by 15-inch square. All that was left out of the 5 rolls of tar paper. So it was like I was really thankful I didn't have to go buy another giant roll of tar paper, because they were 39 bucks a piece or something, and I would have only needed a little teeny piece. So sometimes it just works just right and everything works out just perfectly. So here you can see this is the front side, this is the back side. You can just see on the back side where that color difference is just right at the top. You can't really see it, but it's not too big of a difference. It's not like the caps are black or anything. It's very similar in color. So there's the front side done, there's the back side done, leaving just the side of the house, which is just one long flat piece. And the roof was so worn out. It was like so slippery, and it was really steep. So this side was really sketchy and dangerous. I didn't have a lot of room to put a ladder up on the other side because it's close to the property line and there's a big bush that runs there. So getting started on this backside or the side was a pain in the ass. And also this backside had the most amount of vents. I think there was 6 vents and the electricity came in on this side. So it was a difficult side to do. Now also this side was in the sun all day long. From 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock, it's in the sun. So it had to be done very slowly and carefully. But just like everything else, you start with the tar paper, you get the tar paper on, you put your flashing on, then you can start running your shingles. And at this point, I used all my special order estate gray left. I didn't have any more estate gray, and I had to just change colors to the driftwood color. And you can see going around these vents was a pain in the ass, but just make sure to use lots of glue. Now, here in this picture, you can see the difference. If you look down by the electricity area, those are estate gray at the base, and then the driftwood color on top. So you probably wouldn't, unless you told somebody this is 2 different colors, they might not even pick it up. It might just look like fading. But we're moving from one side to the next side. Another thing you could do is if you're doing, I always start with four rips at a time. So that's like one full sheet, and then you cut three, and then another one is a full piece. So you'd start with 5 rips moving across. And once you get all the way across and done, you could do another 5 going back the other way so that you don't have to keep moving your air hose and your glue and all that stuff and just move from one end to the next end, one end to the next end. I'd start with 5 rips and I'd go all the way across and then I'd go back and then I'd stop and eat lunch and have some water and then I would go back and do another 5 one way, another 5 another way, and just kind of take your time, not rushing, not in a super big hurry, because there's no need to hurry and be in a super big rush. So when you're moving up to the top, the only thing you got to worry about is that top glue line edge that comes on the shingles. And if when you're up to the point where you got to put the cap on, any bit of that glue line showing another piece has to be added on. You can't have that black glue line showing because it would look like shit and it wouldn't cover correctly. So in some areas you might have to fudge it a little bit. And there you can see kind of in the background, my garage has a metal roof on it. I'm going to do another video on that. Maybe I'll do a bonus adding on showing how I did that roof. But it's just you keep moving like right in the center. It's up nice and tight where you don't need extra, but towards the edges, you need a couple extra pieces to make up the difference to get that black line up as high as you can. And you might have to do some fancy you cut the top edge of the shingle off and you cut the 3 tabs to kind of make a custom little piece to just kind of put that little edge together the way you have to. So when I set up to cut the caps, I'm all done now. You just have one more row of caps down the other center edge and the last minute stuff. So when I set up to cut these caps, I like to have a nice working station because I measured it out as like needing 60 caps. So that's 60 pieces you got to cut. So I set up my little cut table and prepped all that. I had a nice little area to cut. I like to keep it nice and like an assembly line for making these caps. So I had everything nice and clean as possible. I had all my tapered ends in one box. I had my junk pieces down in another box and the pieces that I might need to reuse because sometimes when you come to the end, you might have to move it out a little bit. And really, anytime you're using a little smaller piece, make sure to glue the hell out of it when you're doing it. So first I cut them all into individual pieces. I believe those are stacks of 20, and that was like one whole bundle. One bundle of or package of the shingles is 20 shingles. So that's 20 shingles times 3 is 60 individual pieces. So I got all those cut square, and then I set up another thing to finish the side roof and got the caps all cut, the back edge of the caps all cut. Now, once they're installed, there you can see the the finished roof, and on the right side is the driftwood, on the left side is the estate gray. But you really can't tell the difference unless you're up there walking around looking that it's two different colors. But here you can see all the caps are installed. You don't have any pieces sticking out of the edge because we tapered them in. That really makes it look really nice and clean. And here you could see how it was all kind of comes together. Now that is my chimney there. You got to be very careful to kind of move around that and glue it really good and secure everything. Any of the nail holes from putting on the last little pieces, make sure to glue the nail heads and seal it all on. And you know, it's good for this year, but next year when the winter comes, I'm gonna get up and inspect it and see if it needs any more glue or any kind of work or anything done like that. But that's kind of the finished project completed. And it was a job well done, a drink and a smoke. On to the next job. I finished this fully on October 23rd. So it was a little over a month, but I was delayed like 3 weeks on these shingles, and we got it done. So this took about, adding up all the days, not counting the missing shingles, it took about 12 to 15 days total with me working completely solo. And I could have slammed it and really pushed myself if I didn't take off the afternoons when it got hot and got it done by myself in probably 6 to 7 days. If I was getting paid to do this roof, I would have tried to slam it and get it done in in a week if I could, if possible. Now, if you had more guys, with another three, with another guy, I could have got this done in probably 3 to 4 days, maybe 2 days. It depends on kind of who you have helping you do this. Three guys working should be able to do a roof of this size in a day. Now, this is like a 4 bedroom house. This is a big house. If the house is a little bit smaller, you could definitely get this done probably with 2 guys or 3 guys in a day, and that would be one guy up on the roof nailing, one guy cutting the shingles, one guy carrying them up. And once you get into a good rhythm, you could really fly doing this. And that's not counting if you also have a garage that has to be roofed also. Thankfully, I did not because I already did my garage roof 5, 7 years ago. I'm going to show that in just a second, but in the end, the 2 guys doing a roof, one guy carrying them up, should be able to get a thing done in a day. So if you are hiring someone to put a roof on your house and they have 3 guys show up and it's taking them longer than 3 days, they're doing something where they're not working as hard as they should. So definitely make sure, by watching this, you can see that definitely 2 guys should be able to get one side done easily in a day, the next side done in a day, and the back side done in another day. So, with 3 guys, it shouldn't take any longer than 3 days. Now, that is the 2025 roofing project completed. Any questions or comments, please leave it below. I can answer any questions if it comes up. But that is the 3-tab shingle roofing job. Now, next, I wanted to throw in a bonus segment because I was looking into all of my old pictures and I found some other roofs. So, this was my garage roof. I did this in December of 2019. Now, doing this next segment, I wanted to show a roll roof. Roll roof comes in 3 foot long sections, just like the tar paper, and you just unroll it and fasten it down. It's a way cheaper one. It doesn't last as long. And about every 5 to 10 years, you're going to have to re-roll roof your roof, most likely. Now, this structure I'm going to show next is the second roof I put on this structure. So I did this in 2017 and it hasn't leaked so far, which is really good. But I'm thinking probably by the time 2027 comes around, I'm going to have to redo this little roof here. So you roll your tar paper out and you fasten the tar paper. Then you roll out the roll roofing. It is best to measure and pre-cut it before you carry it up the ladder because the rolls of the roll roof are really heavy. Measure within 2 to 4 inches and you could trim it off once you get up there. Now, when you want to nail that off every 4 to 6 inches, roll out the sections until the roof is covered. You can pre-flash this structure and then re-flash over it to hold down the edges, as I did. So this is my house, and you can just see how the the you roll out one level, you put the next one over, you nail it off on top of that, and it's been really good. I think I did the same kind of thing where I did the tar paper and then I did flashing and then I put the roof on and then there's not really anything to hold the edges down, so I put another piece of flashing over the top that kind of are staggered. And it's been up there since 2017. I did this roof and haven't had any problems. So that's just kind of an easy way to look at that. Now, this next roof I'm going to show is the metal roof I put on my garage. I dug up some old pictures and I wanted to show off. This was from 2019. So this garage roof was a fucking nightmare and a half. It was all like flat roll roof. It was massive. And I was getting down at the base where the water, it was a pitched roof tilted down, and right where it got to this little the back thing, it was 22 feet. And that when they built this garage in the 80s, they didn't buy 24-foot long beams. They bought 22-foot long beams and then had to like staple on a piece. So over the time, this had a big sag in it and would collect water right down this edge. Now you can kind of see that towards the back of the roof from this shot where it was leaking. So it was leaking like water was just pouring in. So to try to stop it, I tried to put plastic on it. I bought really thick plastic and put one piece on from the bottom of the taper going up and nailed it all off. And then I put another piece on over the top and then put flashing on it to try to hold it down. And I cut little squares of the roofing to secure the plastic down. And I thought this was going to get me another year because I didn't have any money. And I think this was like right before COVID hit and we got those $2,000 checks. Or and maybe I don't know, maybe I'm not remembering that right. I had to do something to cash in uh some gold I had or something to get the money to do this, but it was like a fucking nightmare doing this. And it's just whenever you don't have the money, that's when you have to do a $2,000 fucking roof job. And it's just this is one of the reasons why right when you think you can make some moves going forward, something like this happens and it just backtracks you for a while. So here you can see I got the plastic all on and it didn't work out like I thought. It did slow the dripping and the amount of water coming in, but I was looking for pictures. I had plastic set up in my garage to like catch the rain and I mean it was a nightmare scenario for sure. The old roof was flat and pieced together at the ends and it was just a fucking disaster zone. So I made it through the winter. I got all that done, and then it was you know uh, end of April or May, and I pulled all that plastic off. I got all the old roof off, and trying to figure out how to repair this roof because it's a giant flat section where at the end, they should have put the beams on long ways at the bottom and then pieced it together at the top. And there would have been way less problems. But it was done the opposite way, and everything had to be completely like I had to redo the entire structure of the roof. It was I mean, it was a disaster zone. Now, luckily, I was working construction at the time and I could handle a job like this. But at some point, it's like I couldn't have afforded to pay a contractor to come in and do this. I mean, it would have ended up costing 15 grand. And it's kind of like when you're up against a rock and a hard place, you either learn how to do it or pay someone 15 grand. Now, the previous roof, the 3-tab shingles I did was $3,000 of shingles. But I know somebody who just had a roof done and they paid $15,000 for a roof. You know, doing it yourself, I saved 12 grand, which, you don't get reimbursed, but it's a good feeling to know that if something does come up, you can handle it. And doing all these other projects, there's not a lot I can't do or learn to do or teach myself how to do. So that's one of these things. So back to this, all this plywood was rotten and it was leaking, and so we removed all the roof. I pulled all the nails. The old roof was installed. It could not be repaired the way it was built. It had sagged too much in this area, and I thought about adding some more beams and trying to straighten it, but the type of roof it was, it wasn't working. So pulling off all of the wood that was previously on there, and I think I already repaired it. That's what the OSB was trying to like build it up and patch it as much as I could until the point where it had to be fully done. So all of the roof was taken off. All of the beams and everything had to be removed, and it had to basically restructure the peak of the roof and do it on a very limited budget. So I had to try to resalvage all the wood I had. I had to resalvage any pieces that I could to get this done. Now you'll see this is all of this roof had to come off. All these beams had to come off. And once they came off, I had to, try to salvage them. They were all warped from years of stuff, so I had to flip them all over where the warp was going up. And it was a big pain in the ass. So here you can see I got all the roof off. This is where like the old roof is, all these beams going out. I pulled all those off and got down to the bare roofing, the bare minimum of the roof. Okay. Now from then, I'm missing a lot of pictures here. I wanted to throw it in of how I did this. I had to fabricate and make a central beam. Now, there's not really a lot of weight up here because it's just the metal roof doesn't weigh as much. But here created this beam. I made a beam out of OSB and I glued it and screwed it and, really went to town making this central beam that I got on here. And it was a pain in the ass, but I came through and I got it done. So from that central beam, I then salvaged any of the boards I could, but I had to buy a bunch of new beams. But here you can see I'm putting together um, the new pitch of the roof here. So I'm going from a flat roof to a pitched roof out of metal. Now here you can kind of see this is kind of what I'm doing, laying out the boards, and once again, fully solo job by myself. Um, but this is kind of what I do is these insane jobs that one person shouldn't really do by themselves. But moving forward, it is just working on this one piece at a time, one board at a time, getting it moving out the best I can. Now, of course, halfway through this fucking job, with the roof fully removed and electric and all this shit, it fucking starts raining. So I have to then once again get plastic and put, I mean, it was just like, it never fucking ends at my house when it comes to this kind of shit. There's always something, some adversity you have to overcome. And it was a pain in the ass to get this all done. But here you can see I got the new roof on, uh the peak of the roof all done. I got all the beams in. I secured it all with all this stuff and measuring them all out so that it fits correctly with the metal roofing sheets. Now here's the metal roofing. I can't remember how many pieces it was. It was 24 metal pieces, and you start on one end, you nail it all off. You have to get special, metal wood mate screws that with a little rubber washer and all this stuff. But doing this the first time, I had zero money to work with doing this. So I didn't use the black roofing goo, which I should have. In between every seam you're putting together, you should glue the fuck out of it so that it does not leak. Now, finishing it all up, this is the roof's all screwed on and nailed on this metal roof, and then the two seams butt together. I try to you butt them together as tight as you can, and then you go over the top with another piece of flashing and secure it all. But here you can kind of see how you start at the back. I moved forward, and it turned out really good. So this I did this in 2019, and haven't had, it does leak because I didn't glue the seams together. But since then, I went up and it was leaking really bad in one spot. So I went up, I loosened some of the bolts out. I put a bunch of that black tar caulking stuff and retightened it down. It might drip a couple spots. One of the reasons it drips a lot is condensation really develops on the underside of that roof and drips down, but it's a garage. I didn't have to go super crazy. It leaks a little bit, but being how I was in a real tight spot doing this and I didn't have any money. This is like one of the reasons, people's credit cards get fucking high is last minute giant roofing job you got to do, and it's just a pain in the ass. It was a super pain in the ass, but to this day it's been 6 7 years and it's the leaks have really stopped. So once the black roofing goo gets in and it seals it, and then once that tar dries, it's good to go. So there's a bunch of pictures missing. I could only find these pictures of this job, but I was remembering, you know, I wanted to add this to the roofing video just because I had these pictures that I found. So bending the central beam, I used a lot of construction adhesive, OSB, and 2x6, and really just sandwiched them together to make a nice beam. It'll honestly be up there for 30 35 years until my initial thought was to build another giant room on top of the garage, but that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But haven't had any problems so far, and that brings this video to an end. So I hope you learned something, and if you think you can do your own roof, I think you can do it too. It's not a big a job. I mean, it is a big job, but as long as don't put all of the tar paper on at once, don't do all the flashing at once, stick to small little segments, and you should be just fine. Bringing this to a close, that was the roofing job. Any questions, leave them. I'll try to answer them as best I can. I'm not a licensed contractor or anything. I'm just a guy who does this stuff by himself, and that saves you thousands and thousands of dollars. So until next time, I will see you guys later. Thank you for watching, and thanks for watching. Have a good day.